Assalamu alaikum. Wouldn't it be wonderful if one day we all come together for an iftar and there's nothing to raise funds for, you know, just to sit and enjoy each other's company. Somehow, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. When the previous sister was talking about the detained in Syria, it reminded me of a visit I had to the Syrian embassy about 4 or 5 years ago. Because the brutality and tyranny that is happening in Syria is nothing new. But it has been largely contained for decades. And I went into the embassy and I was asking about a brother who disappeared, and I was asking for his wife and 5 children. And this brother had been arrested by Americans and handed over to the Assad regime. That's in the days when, of course, America and Assad were great friends. And I asked this man in the embassy to help track down, to trace this missing brother. And he called me back a few days later, and I went to see him, and I said, "Have you found him?" And he said, "No, he's not in our prison system. I don't know who gave you this story." I said, "Well, actually he is, and I can tell you which prison he's in, the Philistine wing of the security prison in Damascus." And he said, "How do you know that?" I said, "Because we have had eyewitness information." And he said, "Who told you?" And I said, "Well, that's privileged information. I was doing some work with caged prisoners, and I said, this is privileged information, I can't tell you." And God help the person if I had given their name, because I could see the look on this man's face. He was furious. But I knew back then that this is a regime that tortures, lies, and is in complete denial about what is going on there. And now we see it in all its grotesque brutality, exactly what is happening in Syria. And just to make sure that we know exactly what the regime is getting up to with the thousands and tens of thousands of prisoners it holds, we actually had a dossier revealed earlier this year by London lawyers Carter Ruggs, and they had a defector from the ranks of the Assad regime, and he brought out pictures in such detail. His job was to go round prisons and to take photographs of every single torture victim. You know how many photographs he had? 50,000. 50,000 photographs of dead men and women who'd been tortured, and one of the methods of torture was starvation. So what we had were images shown to the world that could have come from any Holocaust catalogue. The rib cages, the sticks for arms and legs. It was absolutely horrendous. Another red line crossed, and yet the international community has done nothing, which is why we are here today. Because if we don't come together for our sisters and our brothers and their children, if we don't come together, then they will be alone. As long as the Syrians are living in refugee camps and their children are shivering at night without food and without blankets, we as Muslims cannot rest. We cannot revel and enjoy the life we are living in Britain when they are forced to live in desperate situations. We've heard some horrific stories already of what is happening to these courageous sisters. Imagine carrying a bottle of medicine is a crime in Syria these days if you're caught by the regime. So we have to stop getting angry, we have to get even, and the best way we can get even is by digging deep tonight and raising funds, because our brothers and sisters desperately, desperately need your help. I was speaking to somebody just today who'd been to Syria, and she said, you know what the questions are asked? How are the people of Gaza doing? These people are starving, they're on the brink, and yet they still have enough compassion in their hearts to put aside their own problems for a moment to ask about their brothers and sisters in Gaza. This is the spirit of the Ummah. This is the, it's incredible that they still have time in their hearts for the people of Gaza. So we can't abandon them. We can't abandon them. And I want you to think about this. A few years ago, the very sisters that we are helping tonight will have met like this at events like this in Syria. They'll have come together like this to dig deep for Palestinians, to dig deep for tsunami victims, to dig deep for the earthquake victims in Pakistan. God challenges us every so often with these man-made wars, these natural catastrophes and disasters. And those sisters in Syria would have come together just as we have tonight. And the reason why I wanted to mention that is I was in Pakistan during the earthquake, and I remember standing talking to a woman who was queuing for bread in Abbottabad, and she's standing in this queue, and she looked at me and she said, "Can you imagine?" She said, "The night before the earthquake, I went to bed a very wealthy woman." She said, "You see that rubble right across there?" She said, "All those houses belong to me and I would collect the rent for them." She said, "Now look, I own rubble and I'm standing in the same queue as the people who used to give me rent, and I'm queuing for bread." This is how quickly our fortunes can reverse. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what He has in store for us. So please, be thankful that we're here tonight, be thankful that we're healthy, that we have money in our pockets, that we have means and food, and be thankful, because you never know when our fortunes could change. The sister said she came from Homs. I am in tears every time I think about Homs, because I think that it was in May that the final evacuation took place in the old city, where the fighters and the resistance finally gave up. Why did they give up? Because they had nothing to eat, and their situation was so desperate. This brutal siege enforced by Assad was so tight that the scholars gave fatwas saying it is now halal for the people of Homs to eat cats and dogs. Can you imagine what is haram for us? What is unthinkable for us? They were so starving. You know, I'm guilty of it as much as anybody else. That final hour before we break fast, I'll say, I'm starving, I'm really starving. We have no idea what starving is. Starving is when what is normally haram suddenly becomes halal. Can you imagine being told that it's okay to eat cats and dogs? But the scholars had to give this ruling. Those people were so desperate. The heroic resistance of the Syrian people is nothing short of breathtaking, and I wonder how many of us would be able to stand up to the tests that they are undergoing as we talk. We must not allow our great faith to divide us in this time of conflict, and we have to focus on what unites us, what defines us as being Muslims. It's very easy. We keep it simple. We believe in the 5 pillars of Islam, not 3, not 4, 5 pillars of Islam. We love the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And we have this belief in Allah, the one God. That's what defines us as Muslims. Tonight, we are blessed that we can fulfill one of those pillars of Islam by digging deep for our brothers and sisters in Syria. It's not our diversity which divides us. None of us are born to hate. It's easier for us and more natural for us to do good things. And tonight, as I say, we will have that chance. Another sister that I met at a Syrian event, she said it's not all gloom. All the giant posters of Assad staring down menacingly on his people have gone. And she said instead there are posters with the declaration of our faith, the Shahada.